Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We are here today with our Total Wellness Tuesday episode, where we are going to be going over all things tick bites and Lyme disease. So this is a show by popular request from our community. We are getting to that time of the year, whether it be spring, summer, or fall. Essentially, there's only one season that really isn't tick season, and that would be winter. But as we are approaching the warmer weather, especially here in New England, there is always the threat of ticks and tick bites. And the reason is that they carry something called Lyme disease, or they don't actually carry that. They carry the spirochete bacteria of many different types, actually. A lot of people refer to that bacteria strictly as Borrelia, but that is not the only type of actual bacteria that can be harmful to humans. So as we're going through this today, I want to share with you all the different things that you should be aware of, but also all that you can do to hopefully prevent any type of Lyme-based disease. All right, so let's dive right into the show. So as I was alluding to just a little bit earlier, there are actually many different types of bacteria that a tick can transmit. And if you're not familiar with what a tick is, well, there are many different types. So there's soft ticks, there are Lone Star ticks, there's Gulf Coast ticks, there's brown dog ticks, there's Eastern black-legged ticks, there's American dog ticks, there's Rocky Mountain wood ticks, there's all sorts of different types of ticks. Well, the ones that have, there's a big presence, and again, this can be all over the United States and all over the world for sure, but there's just more prevalent in certain areas. But one of the areas that, of course, I worry about, of course, and many other people in New England are the upper New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and even like Western Massachusetts as well. There's a lot more Lyme disease that's prevalent. So Connecticut, of course, as well, where Lyme got its name from. But that is going to come from the Eastern black-legged tick as well as the Western black-legged tick. So there's two ticks. What they do is they have a brown body, and they have black legs and a black head. Now, they're very small. You can still see them. They're not microscopic, but they're very small. Maybe a different shape, but maybe the size of, let's say, like a small ant. They look more like a spider than an ant, but they're quite small. Now, if a tick bites you, and we'll get into that, we'll get into how they bite you, do you feel it or not feel it, what happens afterwards. But essentially, what they can do is they can actually transmit the bacteria from them into you as they're feeding. And how long do they typically feed for? Well, they'll be on the average adult or child, but they'll be on the average person for about 9 or 10 days. And then essentially they're all filled with blood from feeding off of you, and then they fall off. They come off. So that is essentially their cycle for why they bite you in the first place, how they're trying to feed, and then what happens. Well, so there's good news and there's bad news from all of this, right? Like anything. And I like to cut through the fear, like to cut through the hype, and actually share with you what is going on with these deer ticks and other types of ticks that are transmitting this particular type of disease and have now for decades. Well, here's what we're looking at. If you get bitten by a tick, the tick usually has to be on you with its head buried into your skin for at least 24 hours. Typically, it's 36 to 48 hours after a tick has already embedded its head in you, not crawling around, but it has to actually embed that head into you, for you to contract Lyme disease, or you at least to contract this spirochete, which is a spiral-based bacteria. That's where it gets its name. So spirochete, spiral-based bacteria. And then there's the potential then for you to contract Lyme disease. Now, we'll go over what Lyme disease in just a second. But even if you get bit, there's still only there's a small percentage, really, under 48 hours. It's somewhere around, I believe they said 1.2 to 1.4%. So it's still very small for the actual risk of acquiring Lyme disease. However, there is still that risk. And for those people that do get Lyme disease, I want to tell you what to look for, okay? Because not everybody that gets bit by a tick is going to get Lyme disease. And thankfully, and I'll share with you as I did last year. Okay, so let's go over some of those symptoms now that you may be feeling if that bacteria has entered your body. And you'll feel these typically within 1 week. So days to 1 week. And that's essentially the good news, right? The good news is if you're going to feel it, if you got this bacteria, you're going to start to see these specific type of symptoms. And then we'll talk about what to do next, if you need antibiotics or not. So a red rash or some type of red circle may begin to form around the bite spot. So wherever the tick entered your body, we'll talk about how to remove the tick in just a moment. But let's say there you got bit and now a red ring starts to appear around that bite. Well, that very well could show some type of infection. Not everybody gets the ring. About 50% of people do get that ring, and they may, or again, may not be infected. So it's important to look for that, though, because that is a sign and symptom. A full body rash is another symptom of potentially the bacteria entering your body. A stiff neck and headache are big ones to look for, right? They're very common with a virus. They're common with a flu, but also common with this type of specific spirochete bacteria. If you feel nauseous, if you start to feel weak, if your memory feels a little bit lapsed, a little bit of cognitive-based decline, if you feel any joint pain or muscle aches as if you have the flu, and of course, if you have a fever, these are all reasons to see your doctor and get checked out. These are all symptoms that you may have the first stage of Lyme disease. Now, there are 3 stages of Lyme disease. There's the early localized first stage, where the tick bit you, you start to see that red rash, you might start to have a little fever or a little bit of muscle pain, anything like that. Well, that's the first early localized sign. Then it begins to spread through the body as it moves through the bloodstream. And then there's the later stage as well. Now, this can happen over a period of weeks. It can happen over a period of months. It can start to progress and become more of a debilitating based illness. So then you have to decide, okay, if you got bit by a tick, should you see your doctor? Well, that's obviously and always a personal based choice. So if you have any type of flu-like symptoms or you start to develop a rash, then yes, you should absolutely see your doctor, and the two of you will decide if you should go on antibiotics or not. Again, most people will never need antibiotics. Most people, even when bit by a tick, won't contract Lyme disease. That's the good news. However, some people will, and we've worked with many, many people in my practice who have had Lyme disease. And again, I'll share with you my story in just a moment. So you'll talk with your doctor about if you need antibiotics specifically. Typically 2 to 4 weeks, if caught early enough, is the typical methodology. The typical antibiotic of choice is doxycycline. However, amoxicillin and other drugs are oftentimes used, sometimes with an IV and sometimes just taken for 2 to 4 weeks. And that typically destroys the particular bacteria in the vast majority of cases, especially if treated with the first signs and symptoms of Lyme disease. Now, the issue is this, is that there's a lot of tests out there right now. And I just want people to know there's a lot of false negatives. And the reason why about half the people are a false negative for Lyme disease, even though they have all the symptoms, is that they may actually test too early. And the problem is, so there's multiple different types of tests, but basically there's the Western blot test, and then there's the ELISA-based test. And what we're looking for, though, is has the body yet mounted an immune response to this particular bacteria? So if there aren't those immune-based cells that we're looking for, the specific immunoglobulins, well, you won't actually show positive for Lyme disease because you have to wait at least 4 weeks in order for those typically for the antibodies for them to begin to show. So it's not there are multiple ways to test, but they're not always the most accurate. What I like people to do is you can absolutely test. You can absolutely test. I'm not saying that. And again, you should work with your medical doctor on this. But if you have the signs and symptoms, so you know that you got bit by a tick. Too many people, though, they blame a virus, they blame gut-based issues, they blame muscle weakness just on Lyme. It's kind of like maybe like 5 years ago in my practice, it was one of those catch-alls. It really was like, well, they probably have Lyme. Let's just treat them with antibiotics. Well, that's a scary thing. If you start just treating people with very strong antibiotics, broad spectrum, and you're doing that for 2 to 4 weeks, you can then most likely expect gut dysfunction, mitochondrial issues, all sorts of intestinal permeability, potentially then leading to autoimmune issues. So again, there's pros and cons. You don't want to just willy-nilly start using antibiotics just on a hunch. But if you know that you got bit by a tick and you show a rash and you show flu-like symptoms, joint pain, well, that's a potential time to say, okay, I have this particular bacteria. I got bit by a tick. It just happened a week or two ago. It's early stage. I can most likely fix this with 2 to 4 weeks of an antibiotic. Let me work with my doctor on that. And again, that's why I am impartial. If that is the best choice for someone, and that's what they feel is best for them, okay, then go ahead and do that. That's one of those instances that makes sense if it's right for you, okay? Again, everybody has options. You can choose to do what's right for you. And if you decide to go the antibiotic route, well, then my suggestion, again, not a treatment, right? Not a cure. I'm not diagnosing anything over this podcast, is to use a product like Healthy Gut Support and Clean Gut Probiotic by Equilibrium Nutrition. Now, again, you can use your favorite brand. And if you're working with a functional medicine doctor, they may use another brand, and that's okay. But inside of that Healthy Gut Support it's not the name that matters specifically, but it's the ingredients, right? And making sure that that they're efficacious, that they've been shown to work. And that is L-glutamine, it's zinc, it's glucosamine, it's aloe vera. It's a lot of great things that help to rebuild the gut lining, because we know that antibiotics can cause increased intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut, which we know can cause autoimmune issues, neurological issues, inflammatory-based issues in the future. And then what Clean Gut Probiotic is, well, it's a very special probiotic that combines also the power of Saccharomyces boulardii. So if you're taking all those antibiotics, well, antibiotics are not antifungals. So most likely, and in many cases, a lot of people that take antibacterials, which is an antibiotic, kill the bacteria, but they do not kill off the yeast. So what happens is the yeast begins to proliferate because there's lots of space that's now open from those antibiotics killing off the bacteria in the gut. So what happens is the yeast then begins to overgrow. People get candida overgrowth, and then that leads to a whole host of other gut-based issues, food sensitivities, potentially constipation, diarrhea, skin rashes, brain fog, etc., etc. So we don't want that either, right? We don't want that either. So if you're going to use the antibiotics, use a protocol along with the antibiotics. Take them away from the antibiotics, and you'll use that for 6 to 12 weeks. And I recommend a full 12 weeks. Great products, all natural, and you'll be able to help it along with it. Again, use your favorite brand, use whatever you feel comfortable with. My goal is to give you the information because you shouldn't be taking antibiotics without also taking a product that also contains Saccharomyces boulardii in it. That's in the medical literature, by the way. It's just that there's no prescription for Saccharomyces boulardii, which means doctors don't give it out because where would they tell you to get it, right? It's not like that one's sold at your local drugstore. So, and if it was, you still wouldn't want to buy it there. Okay. So let's move on to another issue. Many people, after they come off of antibiotics, have all sorts of other issues that they still attribute to Lyme. I see this in my practice to this day. What happens is, even after they've been treated for Lyme, the bacteria has been destroyed. They've been on antibiotics for some people 2 months straight. I've worked with many people who have been on antibiotics for 2 months. Okay, bacteria is dead. It's gone. They still have all those symptoms. Well, here's the deal. They're still dealing with the nausea. They're still dealing with the muscle pain. They're still dealing with the headaches. They're still dealing with the weakness. Why? Well, because now they have gut issues and mitochondrial issues. Antibiotics, if not dealt with properly, will cause gut-based issues. It can cause Clostridium difficile overgrowth, a bacteria in the gut, cause a host of issues. Plus, what else happens is that antibiotics have also been shown to destroy your mitochondria. Well, your mitochondria, why would that happen? Well, they're bacteria. They're started as single-cell bacteria. They're what produce our adenosine triphosphate, our ATP, our muscle-based energy. Our mitochondria help use glucose for energy, oxygen, uses lactic acid fermentation, uses many different forms of energy to give you energy. Well, if you don't have mitochondria, you will have mitochondria, but let's say it's gone from hundreds and hundreds inside of each cell to now a couple hundred, well, you're going to have then less energy. that less energy can lead to all sorts of issues, and brain fog can certainly be one of those. So remember, it's not always the Lyme after you've been treated naturally or with conventional medicine. Oftentimes what happens is it's now a secondary, let's call it underlying imbalance, which is gut issues and mitochondrial issues. That's what I see in my practice, and that's what I work on with people all the time. And yes, they do get better, even if they've had it for years, because we stop trying to say that this is Lyme disease and we start saying this is a post-secondary infection due to the long-standing and very powerful antibiotic use. So it's not always the only reason, but it is a big reason in my practice, and that is how we're able to help people, because again, we're not treating Lyme that's already been dealt with. What we're doing is dealing with now the repercussions, the cleanup of taking all of those antibiotics for so long. So that's how we work with that. What I'd like to do now is tell you exactly what I do for myself and my family, what happened to me last year, and what led to me. Obviously, I've been doing this in my practice for quite a number of years, especially, if you're a doctor in New England, meaning New England is, it's Maine, it's New Hampshire, it's Massachusetts, it's the surrounding states. So it's very prevalent here, right? You've got Connecticut that it's big, parts of Rhode Island where it's big. So we have a lot, and like I said too, especially in upstate New York, Vermont, I could keep going on, but this is where there's just a lot of ticks in wooded-based areas, especially where there are deer. And again, Maine is known for deer, right? It's big deer country. So what does that mean? Well, last year, I'm actually starting to more. I'm doing more trail running. I'm going in the woods. I'm just really enjoying being in nature. I know that may sound obviously like most people do, right? But there's something calming about that. And just kind of in this day and time that we're in right now, and everything that's going on in the world, me getting out into nature and just running and jogging and being out there is very calming for me, and I'm very much enjoying it. But at the same time, I need to be cautious. I'm going to give you the precautions to take. But last year, I was bitten by a tick. I was showering, and I looked down at my leg, and I'm like, oh, I got a cut, and it looked like a scab. It was just on the outside of my leg. Now, most of the time, and I'll teach you where to look, but basically, ticks will embed behind the ears, they'll embed in the groin, they'll embed in the hair, usually in darker places, moist places, could be the armpits. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are checking. So we'll go over that in 1 second. But I wasn't expecting to have a deer tick. I've been coming to Maine my whole life. I spent a lot of time in Maine. But anyway, it's right in the side of my leg, right on my shin. And I looked down and I realized that it wasn't a scab. It was actually a tick. And so I've been working with people with Lyme disease for so long. I'm a human, right? I immediately started to get fearful and just worry. I had a lot of just immediate anxiety about it because I know how bad Lyme disease can be. And even though I'm a doctor, and even though I know that the percentage for me getting Lyme disease is still small, I'm human. And so I get out of the shower, I know what to do, and so I'm going to share that with you now of how to basically remove that tick. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get the head and all that's going to be embedded basically is the tick's head. But a lot of people twist the tick to take it out. You don't want that because you can get a secondary infection just from that head being inside of your body. So you don't want to put a match to it. You don't want to squeeze it, which is a lot of kind of like previous advice, because what can happen is then you can actually squeeze that blood and bacteria right in your body. You don't want to do that. So what you do is you actually hold the tweezers to the side, all right? And you put it on the top of the body and as close as you can get to the head. You don't pull fast necessarily. You don't twist. You just pull directly and straight out of the body. And then you can clean it with some alcohol. You can clean it with whatever you'd like, whatever you prefer. And then you want to bag the tick, okay? Because you can send that tick in if you choose to. I'll give you a couple different companies to send it to. One of them, I've recommended this. So again, everybody can kind of listen to my protocol because I'm not going to be able to go through the full thing. I'll give it to you. But I did an episode on 1239 for the entire tick protocol. It was, I believe, on my Friday review. I'm going to give that to you today. I'm going to put it all in the show notes. So all of my different links for resources will be at stephencabral.com/1572. So just head on over to stephencabral.com/1572. I will link up the different tick tests that you can just keep at your house. So basically, you obviously want them now, right? You don't want to order it when you've already had it. But although, it's okay if you get it within a couple days. So you can order one from Tick Check. And there's other companies as well. It's really comprehensive. It's much more expensive. It's like 4 or 5 times the amount of a regular test, but it tests for a lot of different types of bacteria. Or you can just go with one of the more common ones that you'll see at your local sporting goods store. And the company is called Cutter, that offers a Lyme disease tick test. It's not for you, but it's for the tick. So basically, you bag the tick up. You can wear gloves if you'd like. If you don't have gloves, you're not likely to get it because you're not exposed. The tick is not inside of you. But anyway, if you wear gloves, great. Put the tick inside of a bag or put it right inside this test kit, and then you can mail it in. Here's the problem, though, is I just don't want people to worry right away because that can make them nervous. Then they can start to feel symptoms like a psychosomatic type of symptom. The likelihood is low that you will get it. However, it is a possibility. What I did right away was begin my tick bite protocol. Again, this is not a treatment protocol. It's not a disease protocol. It's not a diagnosis cure-based protocol. What I'm doing is helping my body with natural antibacterials, natural antivirals, and I'm boosting my immune system at the same time. So I'd like to share that with you now, and then I'll do a summary in just a second of putting everything together. So, because the thing is, I said, okay, breathe, you're going to be okay. And I didn't actually have the tick tested. And the reason I didn't is I didn't see it the other day before, so I got it within 24 hours. Even if I got that tick inside of me right after I showered the day before, because I shower every morning, it could not have been more than 24 hours. So I said, okay, it's under 36 hours. Likelihood's very small. I'm not going to have it tested because then I'm going to be waiting for the test results. I'm going to be worrying. And I just flushed it. That was it. That was it. I was not dealing with this anymore. But I wasn't going to be brash about it. I said, but there's a possibility. So I began my tick bite protocol. And so I tried to get it immediately. And I know I started it within 24 hours. So I didn't have all the products with me. Now I do, but again, we learn. But I went over to my local natural health store in Maine, and I picked up the exact items that I needed. Now, the nice thing was this. They had most of everything that I wanted. They didn't have everything. So what I use is my GI Balance from Equilibrium Nutrition. It's thyme oil, it's oregano, and it's clove. You want thyme and you want oregano. Oregano is almost far and away the strongest natural antibacterial, natural antifungal, natural antiviral. I mean, it's an amazing, amazing product. If you kind of only keep one heavy-duty one on hand, you want it to be a product like GI Balance, where you take one soft gel at each meal for 30 days, or you simply keep some oregano oil with you. And we have that as part of the viral-based protocol. Like, that's only if you get it, right? It's not to take for daily use. Okay, it's a very strong product, but it is when you need it. An optional one on top of that would be citricidal. Citricidal, if you combine oregano oil and citricidal, you're looking at the two strongest things known to man naturally. Citricidal is a grapefruit seed extract to be antifungal and antibacterial. Very strong products, right? So good. I felt good about taking those. I took them all 3 times a day. Basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's how I use these products. I use 5 and specifically, so I want to give them to you, okay? I'm going to give you exactly what I did. Again, it's not a treatment protocol. Only medical doctors can give you treatment protocols. This is what I do. Or, like, let's just say a family member, if they were ever bit by a tick, and in my practice, this is what I recommend. GI Balance, 1 soft gel at each meal. And it should be taken mid-meal because, again, they're strong. Citricidal, I just did 3 drops 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day. And this one I typically take first thing in the morning and then before bed. Just 3 drops in some water. It's very bitter. All these things are just going to be bitter. It's because they're herbs, right? Bitter herbs. And Ayurveda, as they say, bitter is better. Cat's Claw. Cat's Claw, amazing research on it at episode 1239. I linked up 2 research studies on Cat's Claw and Lyme specifically. Again, 1 full dropper, 2 to 3 times a day. I always go big, so I'm doing it 3 times a day just for peace of mind as well. Astragalus, 1 full dropper, 2 to 3 times a day. Or if you want to get the capsules, you can do 1 capsule. And again, all of these are just in water. And you can mix them together. You can put the Cat's Claw, the Astragalus, and if you have Andrographis as an extract, you can do that. Or you can use it as a capsule or tablet. And it's just, again, 1 at each meal. The Citricidal, I'm just doing 3 drops upon waking, 3 before bed. I'm doing that for 3 weeks. And the GI Balance, I'm doing for 1 month. The Cat's Claw, Astragalus, Andrographis, I did those for 2 to 3 weeks. It was just over 2 weeks. And that's 3 times a day. So that's exactly, what I did. I will set that account up for you as well. You can get all of these products. It's through doctors only accounts, or you can maybe find them at your own local natural health food store as well from a good company. And that's it. So that's what I do. I'm happy to say, whether I had it or not, meaning like whether the bacteria was put into my body or not, Tick Bite Protocol certainly gave me peace of mind, certainly helped, not a lot of downside to taking it, and, well, I'm doing well. And so that's it. I didn't end up with Lyme disease. Again, who's to say? Can't say, right? But I'd rather play it safe. So that's the thing. I'm always trying to err on the side of caution. So I want to sum it up for you. When you go out in an area that may have some type of tick carrying Lyme disease, it's best to, like if you're just outside, I put geranium oil, and I've talked about this before, on my dog. I'll link all these things up for you today. I'm just going to make it easy. Just head on over to stevencabral.com/1572 because I know there's a lot of information. All right. So geranium oil, really great product. We put that, like my daughter's socks, a little bit on t-shirt, a little bit on the base of their scalp. And for my dog, it goes right in his neck, and it goes right above his tail. Okay, geranium oil, great product. There's also so many great tick sprays out there. So now if you know you're going in the woods, this is what I use if I'm going in the woods. I use a product like the Herbal Armor that contains lemon or lemongrass, eucalyptus oil, some cedar, some citronella. These are all great anti-tick based sprays. Now, if you're going into the woods, definitely wear high socks or wear pants with the socks going over the pants so the ticks can't get in, and cover up. I mean, that's basically the bottom line. Cover up, and then look for ticks on your pets because they can bring them into the house. Remember, a tick doesn't embed right away, right? So what it does is it kind of crawls around on you or crawls around on your pet. So what you want to do is check your pets as well, and then check yourself or check your kids daily too. Check the armpits, check the groin, check the legs, obviously, and check your hair. So check for places that may have ticks. Very, very important, okay? And then remove the tick the same day. That's the ideal. What I'm going to do is I will put up a webpage on how to remove the tick, but really just gently and steadily pull it straight out. Don't twist it, and then save the tick if you choose to. If not, obviously, it's totally up to you. But it's probably wise to have it tested. I choose not to, just for peace of mind. What I had to do is just get myself in a better mental state of I'm going to be fine. I am fine. I'm going to go to what I know works for me, and I'm going to begin my tick bite protocol. I'm good. I feel good. I'm a healthy human being. My immune system's good. All right, let's do this. That's the pep talk I gave myself. All right, so I will put, though, I'm going to give you the websites where you can purchase a tick test if you'd like to keep one on hand. Maybe you do it, again, just for your own peace of mind. What if, your dog or your child gets bit or whatever it might be, you're welcome to test. Okay, begin the tick bite protocol. And then that's the next step that's what I would do. Again, it's obviously optional. Watch for symptoms. And if symptoms begin to appear, that is the time. That might be a good idea for you to talk with your doctor. If you start to see flu-like symptoms, fever, muscle pain, joint pain, rash, headaches, nausea, etc., within a week or so of getting bit. So hopefully this was helpful. I know it was a big episode. I'm happy to talk more about it. I know people want to know more specifically what the symptoms look like. I'll definitely do a follow-up show to that. I wanted to give you the what to do today because that's what people are asking me about. And then I'll go more into the specific dozen or so symptoms of what they look like for other people in the future. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks so much. And of course, if this was helpful at all, please do feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.